Good evening and welcome to the Capitol Alert. Tonight we bring you a comprehensive, verified, and fully sourced report on one of the most rapidly escalating military conflicts the world has witnessed in the 21st century. The date is Thursday, March 19th, 2026. And we are now on day 20 of the United States and Israel's military campaign against Iran, a war that has fundamentally altered the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East, shaken global energy markets to their core, and placed the entire world on the edge of an economic and humanitarian catastrophe. What began as a targeted military operation against Iran's nuclear infrastructure on February 28, 2026, has since grown into something far larger, far deadlier, and far more dangerous than anyone in the international community had anticipated. Over the past 20 days, cities have been bombed, senior government officials have been assassinated, oil prices have shattered records, the world's most important energy shipping lane has been effectively closed, and the world's largest liquefied natural gas terminal has been severely damaged. Tonight, we will walk you through every major development from today, Thursday, March 19th, in detail. We will cover the military situation, the energy crisis, the diplomatic fallout, the political controversies in Washington, and the devastating human cost of this conflict. Every fact in this broadcast has been verified through multiple internationally recognized news organizations, including Al Jazeera, CNN, CBS News, ABC News, NPR, Bloomberg, and official statements from governments and international bodies. So let us begin, because today the news is as urgent as it gets. To fully understand the gravity of today's developments, we must first understand how this war began, because this conflict did not start overnight. It was the result of months of failed diplomacy, military buildup, and a series of decisions that brought the United States and Iran to the point of open warfare. On February 28, 2026, Israel and the United States launched coordinated military strikes against Iran. Both countries stated that their goals were to dismantle Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program and to push for regime change inside Tehran. The timing was not accidental. The attacks came at a moment when the Iranian regime was arguably at its weakest point in several years. Widespread protests had erupted across Iran in early 2026, driven by a severely weakened economy and crumbling infrastructure. Many of Iran's regional allies had already been significantly degraded by prior Israeli military operations dating back to 2023. In the weeks before the war, there were genuine signs that diplomacy might succeed. Indirect nuclear negotiations were taking place, mediated by Oman. Iran had made serious offers to suspend uranium enrichment for several years. However, U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff reportedly misrepresented the Iranian negotiating position, and diplomats with direct knowledge of the talks said the negotiations were ultimately undermined from within the American side. By February 19th, the U.S. military buildup in the region was described by analysts as the largest American military presence in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Then came the moment that changed everything. Iranian state media confirmed on the very first day of strikes that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, 86 years old and the ruler of Iran for nearly 4 decades, was killed in airstrikes targeting his office in Tehran. An Iranian state broadcaster delivered the news in tears. The assassination of Khamenei was the single most consequential political killing in the modern history of the Middle East. It immediately threw Iran's political and military command structure into disarray and signaled to the entire world that this was not a limited surgical strike. This was a war aimed at the total dismantling of the Iranian state. On March 1st alone, Iran's chief of staff Abdul Rahim Mousavi, defense minister Aziz Nasirzadeh, and IRGC commander Mohammad Pakpour were all confirmed killed by Israeli airstrikes. CBS News reported that up to 40 Iranian officials were killed in the opening wave of strikes. Iran's response was immediate and fierce. Tehran threatened massive waves of attacks on Israel and U.S. military bases across the region, announced the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and declared that there would be no mercy in taking revenge for the killing of its supreme leader. The United States named its military operation Operation Epic Fury. And fury is exactly what has followed. Now let us turn to the most urgent news of today, Thursday, March 19th, because this morning brought with it a dramatic and dangerous new escalation in the conflict. An Iranian drone struck the Saudi Aramco Samref refinery located in Yanbu on the Red Sea coast of Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Ministry of Defense confirmed the strike and said that damage to the facility is currently being assessed. This is a significant development. Saudi Aramco is the world's largest oil company, and a strike on its refinery infrastructure sends a powerful signal that Iran is now willing to target the energy backbone of its Gulf Arab neighbors directly. The attack on Yanbu came just hours after Iran's Revolutionary Guards had issued explicit warnings that Gulf energy production sites would be targeted following Wednesday's Israeli strike on Iran's South Pars gas field. Kuwait also confirmed on Thursday morning that an Iranian drone struck the Mina al-Ahmadi refinery, one of the country's key oil processing facilities. A limited fire broke out at the facility, though Kuwait's national petroleum company reported no injuries. These strikes on Saudi Arabia and Kuwait represent a major escalation. Iran is no longer limiting its retaliation to Israel and U.S. military bases. It is now going after the economic lifelines of the entire Gulf region. The attacks on Saudi and Kuwaiti refineries today were directly triggered by a dramatic sequence of events that unfolded on Wednesday. Events centered on the world's largest natural gas field. On Wednesday, Israel struck Iran's South Pars gas field, the largest natural gas field in the entire world. The strike was a major escalation targeting a facility that is not only central to Iran's economy, but is also shared with Qatar, meaning the strike had direct implications for Qatar's energy infrastructure as well. President Trump addressed the strike on Truth Social, saying the United States had no advance knowledge of Israel's plans to attack South Pars. He declared there would be no more such Israeli strikes on the gas field going forward. But Trump did not stop there. He issued one of the most dramatic ultimatums of the entire conflict. Trump warned that if Iran attacks Qatar, the United States will destroy the entirety of the South Pars gas field with a level of military force that Iran has never seen before. Iran's response was swift and devastating. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued a warning that it would respond to the South Pars strike by attacking oil and gas facilities of neighboring Gulf states. And within hours, it acted on that threat. Iran's missiles caused heavy damage to Qatar's Ras Laffan liquefied natural gas facility, the world's largest LNG export terminal. Qatari authorities confirmed that Iranian ballistic missile attacks caused fires and extensive damage at Ras Laffan, a terminal that carries approximately 1/5 of the entire world's liquefied natural gas supply. The consequences for global energy markets have been immediate and severe. Brent crude oil prices climbed to $116 per barrel following the attacks, up from under $73 per barrel on the eve of the war. European natural gas benchmark prices surged 24% in a single day of trading. The damage to Ras Laffan is not just an energy story, it is a crisis for the entire developing world. Pakistan imports approximately 99% of its liquefied natural gas from Qatar. Bangladesh imports around 70%. India sources over 40% of its LNG from Qatar. Major South Asian countries are now bracing for power cuts and industrial slowdowns as a direct result of the damage to Ras Laffan. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister said that Iran's decision to attack Qatar's Ras Laffan complex, while a diplomatic meeting of Arab and Islamic foreign ministers was taking place, was a calculated, premeditated, and well-organized attempt by Iran to blackmail Arab and Islamic countries into pressuring the United States to stop the war. The diplomatic fallout from Iran's attacks on Gulf energy infrastructure has been swift and severe. Qatar declared Iranian military and security attachés at the Iranian embassy persona non grata and ordered them and their staff to leave Qatar within 24 hours. The decision came directly in response to Iran's repeated missile attacks on Qatari territory and the extensive damage caused to the Ras Laffan facility. Saudi Arabia, for its part, issued one of its strongest statements of the entire conflict, saying that the little trust that remained in Iran has been completely shattered. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan went further, warning that Riyadh and other Gulf capitals have the full military capabilities to respond forcefully to Iran if it does not immediately stop its strikes against them. He made clear that non-political options, meaning military options, are now firmly on the table. The situation across the Gulf region is now deeply unstable. Multiple countries that have historically tried to maintain a degree of neutrality or balance in their relationships with both Iran and the West are now being directly attacked by Iranian missiles and drones. The risk of a broader regional war, one that goes beyond just the United States, Israel, and Iran, is growing by the hour. Inside Iran, the political and military situation remains extraordinary. The country has lost its supreme leader, its intelligence minister, its security chief, its besieged commander, and dozens of other senior officials, all within the first 3 weeks of this war. And yet Iran's government insists it is still standing. Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, son of the assassinated Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, declared that Israel will pay for the assassination of 3 senior Iranian security officials who were killed within just 48 hours of each other: Security Chief Ali Larijani, Basij Commander Gholamreza Soleimani, and Intelligence Minister Esmail Khatib. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that Tehran's political system remains strong and resilient despite the devastating losses it has absorbed. He told Al Jazeera that the United States bears full responsibility for the war engulfing the entire region. The killing of Ali Larijani deserves special attention. He was not simply a military figure. He was one of Iran's most experienced and pragmatic political operators. Larijani was widely regarded as a politician who had the capacity to open windows for negotiation and had personally led Iran's nuclear talks before the war began. Analysts believe Israel's decision to assassinate him may have been a deliberate move to close off any remaining diplomatic pathways to ending the conflict. With Larijani gone, with the intelligence minister dead, and with the Basij commander killed, Iran's capacity to both fight and negotiate simultaneously has been severely diminished. The question now being asked in capitals around the world is who inside Iran, if anyone, has both the authority and the willingness to bring this war to an end? Today brought another milestone in the military dimension of this conflict, one that underscores just how dramatically the scope of the war has expanded. Israel announced on Thursday that it had begun striking targets in northern Iran for the first time since the war began on February 28th. This marks a significant geographical expansion of the conflict, with Israeli strikes now reaching parts of Iran that had previously been outside the theater of active combat operations. This development comes alongside the broader military picture, which, according to U.S. and Israeli assessments, shows Iran's military capabilities being systematically degraded. Iranian ballistic missile launches have fallen by more than 90% since the beginning of the war. Drone launches have similarly declined dramatically. Hundreds of Iranian missile launchers have been rendered inoperable, and Iran's air defense systems have been so thoroughly suppressed that the United States is now flying non-stealth B-1 bombers over Iranian airspace, a decision that signals near-total American confidence in air dominance over the country. The U.S. military also confirmed this week that American forces have dropped 5,000-pound guided bombs specifically designed to penetrate deeply hardened underground targets on Iranian missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz coastline. However, despite this military degradation, Iran has not stopped fighting. It continues to launch missiles and drones, and as today's strikes on Saudi Arabia and Kuwait demonstrate, it is actively expanding the geographic reach of its own retaliation. Back in Washington, a major political controversy is developing that strikes at the very heart of how and why this war began, and whether the American public was told the truth. U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has been accused of altering her written Senate testimony regarding Iran. Her submitted written statement indicated that U.S. intelligence had concluded that Iran had actually been attempting to rebuild its uranium enrichment capabilities after they were destroyed in strikes last year, a finding that directly and significantly contradicts President Trump's repeated public insistence that Iran was on the verge of building a nuclear weapon and therefore posed an imminent threat requiring immediate military action. This accusation is deeply serious. If Gabbard altered intelligence testimony to align with the political narrative of the Trump administration rather than the actual findings of the intelligence community, it raises fundamental questions about whether the justification given to the American public and the world for launching this war was truthful. This controversy follows the resignation earlier this week of Joe Kent, another senior Trump-appointed intelligence official. Kent resigned, citing deep misgivings about the administration's decision to go to war with Iran. In an interview following his resignation, he said that key decision-makers were not allowed to present their views to President Trump before the war began, and that there was no intelligence indicating Iran was preparing to launch a major surprise attack on the United States or its allies. Trump dismissed Kent's resignation, calling it a good thing and saying Kent was very weak on security. But Kent's public statements have added significant fuel to a growing debate in Washington about whether this war was truly necessary, and whether it was launched on the basis of accurate intelligence or political pressure. One of the primary justifications given by both the United States and Israel for launching this war was the need to permanently eliminate Iran's nuclear program. Tonight, the head of the world's leading nuclear watchdog organization is casting serious doubt on whether that goal has been or can ever be achieved through military means. Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, said in an interview that he does not believe the war can entirely eliminate Iran's nuclear program. He acknowledged that the physical facilities have suffered enormous degradation, but said that most probably at the end of this military conflict, the nuclear material will still be there, the enrichment capacities will still be there, and perhaps some infrastructure will still remain. Grossi pointed out that Iran is a very large country with a sophisticated scientific, technological, and industrial base. Its nuclear program is vast and scattered across multiple universities, research facilities, and laboratories across the country. While the most advanced parts of the program have been severely damaged, he made clear that there is much more that remains intact and potentially recoverable. Grossi also confirmed that a drone strike hit a building on the premises of Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant. He said the damage was not very significant, the reactor was not affected, and there were no casualties. But he condemned any attack on any nuclear facility in the strongest terms. The IAEA chief's assessment is a direct challenge to the core justification for this war. If military strikes cannot permanently eliminate Iran's nuclear program, and if the nuclear material and enrichment knowledge survives the conflict, then the question must be asked, what exactly has this war achieved and at what cost? The economic shockwaves from this conflict are now being felt in every corner of the world, from the fuel stations of Islamabad to the stock markets of Tokyo. Oil prices surged further on Thursday, following the drone strikes on Saudi and Kuwaiti refineries, with Brent crude hitting $106 per barrel. This compares to under $73 per barrel before the war began, meaning oil prices have risen by nearly 60% in just 20 days of conflict. Asian stock markets declined sharply on Thursday morning. Japan's Nikkei 225 fell 2.7%. South Korea's Kospi lost 2.6%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng dropped 1.4%. Taiwan's TAIEX was also down 1.4%, all driven by fears over Middle Eastern energy supply disruptions. Russia has emerged as one of the unintended financial beneficiaries of this conflict, as Iran's retaliatory strikes continue to paralyze crude oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. Global energy prices surge, and Russia's oil revenues increase accordingly. The U.S. Treasury has issued a 30-day waiver on sanctions imposed on Russian energy sales, calling it a short-term measure to promote stability in global energy markets. For Pakistan specifically, the situation is deeply alarming. Pakistan imports approximately 99% of its liquefied natural gas from Qatar, with Qatar's Ras Laffan terminal, which supplies 1/5 of the entire world's LNG, now severely damaged. Pakistan faces the very real prospect of energy shortages, power cuts, and industrial slowdowns in the weeks ahead. Economists have warned that if this conflict continues, it could trigger a worldwide economic recession. Qatar's energy minister had previously warned that if Gulf energy producers are forced to halt exports and declare force majeure, it will bring down the economies of the world. Beyond the geopolitics, beyond the energy markets, beyond the military statistics, there are human beings at the center of this catastrophe, and tonight, their suffering demands to be acknowledged. According to Iran's Ministry of Health, at least 1,444 people have been killed and 18,551 injured in U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran since February 28th. These are not just numbers, and they are fathers, mothers, children, and grandparents whose lives have been taken or permanently altered by this war. Amnesty International confirmed that a U.S. strike on a school in Manab in Iran's Hormozgan province killed 168 people, more than 100 of whom were children. The organization's analysis found that a U.S.-manufactured Tomahawk cruise missile was most likely used in the strike. A preliminary U.S. military investigation found that the attack resulted from reliance on outdated intelligence data. Among those killed in the strikes was a 3-day-old infant and his 2-year-old sister, killed when their home in the city of Arak was hit. Their mother and grandmother also died in the same strike. In the UAE, at least 8 people were killed, including nationals from Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. In Saudi Arabia, 2 people were killed and 12 wounded when a projectile fell on a residential area. In Qatar, 2 ballistic missiles struck the Al Udeid U.S. military base, and all schools were moved to remote learning with Ramadan public gatherings suspended for safety. Nearly 120,000 Syrians have fled back to Syria from Lebanon since the broader regional war erupted. Lebanon was drawn into the conflict when Hezbollah attacked Israel in retaliation for the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran, triggering intense Israeli counterstrikes and ground operations in southern Lebanon. These human stories, the school, the infant, the refugees, the workers from Pakistan and Nepal and Bangladesh, remind us that wars are not fought in strategy rooms. They are lived and died in homes, schools, and streets by ordinary people who had no say in the decisions that brought this conflict to their doorsteps. As the military and humanitarian situation worsens, the political situation in Washington and across the Western alliance continues to deteriorate. President Trump criticized NATO allies and partners for failing to contribute warships to help secure the Strait of Hormuz for oil tanker traffic. He went as far as suggesting the United States should reconsider its NATO membership as a result of allied inaction. Vice President J.D. Vance firmly backed the president, expressing full confidence in Trump's handling of the conflict. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, in a joint statement with the leaders of France and Germany, condemned Iranian counterstrikes and called for an immediate return to diplomacy. He stated clearly that he does not believe in regime change from the skies. The United Kingdom has not participated militarily in any of the strikes on Iran. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane are scheduled to hold a press conference today, Thursday, March 19th, where they are expected to provide the latest military assessment of the war and address growing questions about strategy and exit planning. Meanwhile, President Trump announced he has postponed his planned trip to China by 1 month, acknowledging simply, "We've got a war going on." The postponement has added to concerns about the broader geopolitical implications of the conflict, as China remains a key player in any potential diplomatic resolution and a major importer of Gulf energy. And so, as we reach the end of tonight's broadcast, let us step back and take in the full picture of what we are witnessing on this Thursday, March 19th, 2026. 20 days ago, the United States and Israel launched a war against Iran. They said it was about nuclear weapons. They said it would be decisive. They said the threat was imminent and the action was necessary. 20 days later, here is where we stand. Iran's supreme leader is dead. 3 of its most senior security officials have been assassinated in the last 48 hours alone. The country's military capabilities have been severely degraded. Its nuclear facilities have been heavily damaged. And yet, Iran's government says it is still standing, its new supreme leader is vowing revenge, and its missiles are still flying. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of the world's oil flows, remains effectively closed. The world's largest liquefied natural gas terminal in Qatar has been severely damaged. Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure has been struck. Kuwait's refinery has been hit. Oil is at $116 a barrel. Asian stock markets are falling. Pakistan faces energy shortages. And the global economy is teetering on the edge of recession. In Washington, a senior intelligence official has resigned, saying key decision-makers were silenced before the war began. The director of national intelligence stands accused of altering Senate testimony, and the UN's nuclear watchdog has told the world plainly that military force alone cannot permanently eliminate Iran's nuclear knowledge. The human cost is staggering. Over 1,444 civilians killed in Iran, a school full of children bombed, a 3-day-old infant dead, workers from Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh killed in Gulf states they came to for a better life. The IAEA chief said it most simply and most powerfully. At the end of this military conflict, the nuclear material will still be there. The enrichment knowledge will still be there. Iran will still be there. So tonight, the world watches and waits, watches for the next strike, waits for a ceasefire that has not come, hopes for diplomacy that has not started, and prays that somewhere, somehow, someone in a position of power will find the courage and the wisdom to stop this before it gets worse. This has been your special news broadcast for Thursday, March 19th, 2026. Every fact in this script has been sourced and verified from CNN, Al Jazeera, CBS News, ABC News, NPR, Bloomberg, Amnesty International, the IAEA, and the UK House of Commons Library. We will continue to bring you updates as this situation develops. Stay informed, stay safe. Good night.